This episode may contain adult themes and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Sorry.
What's the trick in making my love stick? What's the trick?
Hello, and welcome to the Film Critic and the Common Man podcast. Other film podcasts might steal people's pens. We specifically use them to escape police custody. Every episode, we discuss a film from the perspective of a film critic and the perspective of a common man. We may not agree, but it certainly won't be boring. I'm your co-host, Ben Miller. I write about films from my own site, Ice Cream for Freaks, and I'm a member of the North Texas Film Critic Association, as well as the International Film Society Critics. You can hear me guest on other pods as the David Thewlis of podcasting. And I am joined by my brother and common man co-host, the guy I make sure to walk on the right side of the prison hallway, Jake Miller. How you doing, buddy?
Good evening, Clarice.
It's funny.
I'm doing good.
It's funny. He says good evening, Clarice. The line hello, Clarice never really pops up. It's for some reason it's one of those lines that never actually exist.
It's the Mandela effect.
Exactly. Yes. It's one of those things you assume that it happens, just never does. We are getting close to finishing October, but we're still on our October miniseries, and it is a good one today. We are talking about Silence of the Lambs, directed by Jonathan Demme, written by Ted Talley, based on the book by Thomas Harris, starring Jodie Foster, Anthony Hopkins, Ted Levine, and Scott Glenn, co-starring Anthony Heald, Brooke Smith, Frankie Faison, and Cassie Lemons. Opened on January 30th, 1991 in New York, a very early time in the year for this to open for a kind of scary thriller movie, but opened wide 2 weeks later on February 14th, 1991, a sleeper hit if there ever was one. Really low expectations, but came out 130.7 million domestic, 142 international, $272 million on a $19 million budget.
Bad.
And this is the heyday of VHSs, and this was a huge VHS hit for a long time. So that doesn't even take into account. So this made its money 100 times over. Critically, commercially, and critically successful, nominated for 7 Oscars: Best Picture, Best Director, Actor, Actress, Adapted Screenplay, Editing, and Sound. Won 5 of them: Picture, Director, Actor, Actress, and Adapted Screenplay. The third film in history to ever win all 5 of those, after it happened one night in 1934 and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in 1975. Critics and audiences were in absolute lockstep with this. 95% for critics and Rotten Tomatoes, 95% for audience. Unsurprising. This is the pinnacle of everybody's on board with this. It's like there are some people that'll have the nitpicks and stuff like that, but I mean,
sure.
Generally people are like, this is a classic, and everybody watches and go, yep, it's a classic. And I mean, it's one. This is one of those movies I remember as a kid. Like, I think our Albertsons had a video store in the back of it, and every time I'd see the Silence of the Lambs poster, and I'm like, I don't know what that is, but it seems terrifying.
Yeah, the cover on the VHS tape of like her with a moth over her mouth. Yes, I specifically remember like being in a video section or in a Blockbusters or something. Is like, I don't know what that is, but I mean,
of all those movies, like that maybe you could get away with watching when you were kids, this is not one that our parents were ever like, okay, yeah, we're gonna pop on Silence of the Lambs. This is definitely one we saw when we were older. So you had seen this before previously. As did I. It's one of those. It's kind of hard, like, for a kind of horror-esque thriller. It's one that is very kind of, it's around a lot, and it's you see, and one of the things that really caught me is it's only 2 hours, but I mean, you think of when you're watching it, you're like, man, Lecter is already in Memphis and we're only an hour in. Like, it really moves. Right. This thing really flies by. Okay, so I guess I will do a quick plot summary of everything that's going on here in the Silence of the Lambs. This is it's based in 1991, so the time it was released. Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster, is an FBI trainee in Quantico, and she is pulled out by Jack Crawford from the behavioral science unit, Jack Crawford, played by the always reliable Scott Glenn. He says, I want you to go interview Hannibal Lecter. And at this time, a serial killer named Buffalo Bill is abducting and killing women and skinning their and removing parts of their skin. So he's like, I want you to talk to Lecter and try to talk to him about certain stuff. And she goes in there and essentially doesn't really get much from him. Actually, if you think about it, the pinnacle of the movie does not work unless Biggs, Miggs, excuse me, the person next to the insane person next to Lecter in the thing, if he doesn't, he's masturbating and flicks semen at her. So she's about to leave, and Lecter's like, oh, that was terrible. Come back. I want to give you something as a parting gift. And he essentially gives her a clue to the Buffalo Bill psychology and all this kind of stuff. And through that, so she keeps going back and forth, trying to, with Lecter, to get an idea of what's happening with Buffalo Bill. At the same time, Buffalo Bill he abducts Catherine Martin, the senator of the daughter of a senator. So Buffalo Bill, the crimes have been kind of publicized, but this puts it into overdrive with the power of the senator behind it. And so Lecter kind of leverages this, and a lot of things kind of happen. So he gets transferred to Memphis, and Clarice goes, okay, well, I guess I need to talk to him more. And she gets an idea of actually what is happening and figures out what's going on with Bill. Lecter uses that leverage to escape. He disappears, and then she goes and tries to find some kind of connection with her first victim, with Buffalo Bill's first victim, realizes she knew him, and then kind of stumbles across him accidentally. And he tries to, she finds Catherine. She stalks him in the basement of this house and ends up kind of killing him, luckily, more than anything else. Probably just instincts due to constant training. You hear a click, you turn around, you probably start shooting. So, but regardless, she kills Buffalo Bill, rescues Catherine Martin, becomes a full-fledged FBI agent, and Lecter calls her at the end of the thing and says, it's like, well, I'm gone. I'm not going to come after you, but I'm going to go do my Lecter stuff, and the end. So there's a really there's a lot to get into. I mean, it's kind of difficult to pigeonhole this movie as a horror movie. I mean, there are some horror aspects. It's more like talked about more than anything else. There are not really jump scares.
No, there's really none as far as that goes. There's really no jump scares. I mean, and it's really not that gory. There are a few scenes, like, I mean, after he escapes from Memphis, I guess.
And I mean, he hung the cop up and pulled his guts out, but I mean, it's quick flashes. It doesn't linger on it.
Right.
And Buffalo Bill has a dead body in his decomposing, but that's viewed for 2 seconds, and then that moves on. So I mean, it's nothing.
It's kind of, and maybe it was maybe that's a sign of the times. I think when they really didn't dig in and sit on
it's not
violence,
visceral.
It's they show you enough to know that what bad is going on, but
that's kind of the trick of this movie is just like, even all Lecter and all this kind of stuff, you talk about cannibalism and all this kind of stuff, and it's just to talk about, you're just like, man, cannibalism, he ate livers and the bit out this girl's tongue, and it's all talked about. And you see in whenever he attacks the cops is like, okay, well, we see the ability of what he does and how long he's willing to take it, but the majority of the really vicious stuff he does is only alluded to.
Right.
And even Buffalo Bill, I mean, he's obviously nuts. He has all these dead bodies, but again, it's all alluded to. It's not, we don't see him kill anybody.
I mean, you see him sewing what you can presume is human skin.
Yes.
and stuff like that, but you never see him actually kill a person, skin a person, that kind of thing.
It's all just kind of it like we talked about in our Blair Witch episode. It's just an aspect of, your imagination makes it much worse than it actually is in reality, and your imagination is going to be so much worse than, like, if you show it, it's just like, okay, well, that's what it is, and it's matter of factly. Everything else, you're like, okay, not so much. So I want to talk about the. I was thinking about you a lot of this time. Obviously, you weren't an FBI agent, but you had a lot of aspects of police stuff that you had to deal with. And I was thinking, the climax, whenever Clarice is into the house. I'm more thinking of operationally, and like as far as like the smart thing to do. Going into that basement alone is probably the wrong decision, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I actually had that same thought, is like, what's your approach?
Yeah. I mean,
but there is the driving factor of there being a victim.
There is somebody there you need to try to save. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that is a driving force. That is something. Typically, if you thought, okay, I've got my bad guy, I've got a crime scene, dead bodies or something like that. Yeah, you're gonna wait for backup, but the presence of a live victim would push you on.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed, the kind of the little humor in that scene where she finds Catherine. She's like, hey, do you know where he is? And she goes, how the hell should I know? And it's like, okay, Catherine, I'll be right back. It's like, no, let me in here. Essentially, like, okay, you're alive. I've established you're alive. I know where you're going to be. Now I have to handle what I need to handle. Saving you is not a priority right now. You're alive. I'm good. And now time to go. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, kind of the right way to approach these things.
Shut that dog up.
Yeah. And it's the other thing I was thinking during the entire scene is, as soon as she realizes kind of he's Buffalo Bill and I have to go down in this basement, I mean, it's one thing, like, I always hate the kind of cliche of like a cop holding a gun on somebody and like shaking, but that one, I'm like, okay, your adrenaline is jacked. And I get that one in this one. You're going in blind, and there's a lot of factors. You don't know what you're going into. So, I mean, I kind of give this one a pass.
Yeah, but I did like the 90s.
And with revolvers, everybody has revolvers. The quick load reload revolvers. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, all those fun little, like, a lot of handheld radios. The really interesting thing about this is, Jodie Foster being kind of the main character, who's obviously, she drives the narrative more than anybody else because she's probably in the movie more than anything else. But I mean, she's very tiny. She's a very small person, and you see she's very physically capable at the beginning of the movie. She's running the obstacle course just fine, all that kind of stuff. It's a very interesting movie to be kind of feminist without being explicitly feminismly pointed. Like, they'll do the thing where she'll whenever she's going to see Crawford right at the beginning, she gets in the elevator around all these guys, I think in red, and she's in gray, and she's just kind of just like sheepish. It's like it's a part of what she has to deal with, and a lot of guys are staring at her. She deals with it, but she deals with it and moves on, because what happens, this is 1991. This is not a situation where you're not going to talk to HR or the FBI. This is 1991. We're still a ways away from that. So I really like that. And without ever explicitly saying, it's like, okay, I'm a woman in a male dominated world, she doesn't have to say that, because she's surrounded by this anyway.
Yeah, I think they did a good job. In a few scenes, like you said, that elevator scene where it just shows how much smaller she is. There's several scenes where
the one in the funeral parlor where Crawford goes talks to the cops, and they leaves her alone, and she's just surrounded by these huge guys. Yeah.
So they address it without,
it's a part of it, but it's not like it's a very intelligent, it's assuming your audience is much more intelligent than you give them credit for. You're not like, hey guys, look at this big flashing sign, and it's like, no.
Yeah.
You're like, you can kind of figure it out from there.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They assume the audience is intelligent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The the two kind of villains of this film are two kind of not sides of the same coin, but at the same time they're kind of obviously Lecter and Buffalo Bill are the two essentially antagonists, but at the same time Lecter isn't like he's not the villain you're trying to vanquish. Like
right.
he's kind of like
he's almost an anti-hero.
Almost. I mean,
not.
And I had there's 1,000 things about this movie online that you can look into and dive into deep. The most really interesting thing I've heard about this, and one that I've read a long time ago, is whenever he first introduces himself to Clarice, she talks about his paintings, and she says that's the picture of the Duomo from the Belvedere. That's actually a reference to Belvedere, Ohio, where Bill was. So he actually knew where Buffalo Bill was from the beginning, and he just decided to toy with her this entire time. So it's a manipulative thing. He's being manipulative. He's being intentional. It's like essentially, it's like, well,
quid pro quo.
Exactly. He just wants his own way, and he kind of and you think of him as being Lecter's so interesting because he's refined, he's polite, and he doesn't make the necessary comments, but at the same time, he's looking through the case file, he winks at her, and it's creepy. You're like, well, what's that about? And just like, it's weird to have a character this dynamic and repulsive that you can't be like, it's like everything about him I don't want to be around. But
right.
But at the same time, I was going to make the joke. Who's the biggest villain in this movie? Lecter, Buffalo Bill, or Dr. Chilton? Like, because Dr. Chilton is such a sleaze. Whenever he is kind of tormenting Lecter, you're like, well, I hope Chilton doesn't get the worst of this.
Well, I think the way it ends, definitely shows that like he's ultimately like even worse than Buffalo Bill. Like you can take satisfaction in being like, all right, Lecter's gonna get this guy.
Yeah, it's kind of like Lecter is evil but refined. Buffalo Bill is evil and unrefined, and Chilton is kind of like evil but politically astute. Like
right.
It's
he's got the titles and
titles and all that kind of stuff. So the movie works more than anything else because of the relationship between Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins. Because their dynamic is such that it's, a lot of times, occasionally there'll be actors in movies and they'll be going back and forth and they're really powerful dynamics, and they'll be kind of like shouting over each other and fighting for space on the screen. And this seems like an aspect of, okay, we understand the relationship between the two. We understand the dynamic, and they're going to fit into their own dynamic as opposed to try to overpower. Like if Jodie Foster out of nowhere started screaming at Anthony Hopkins, it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't fit the character. But she is willing, but you can feel her desperation the entire time.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's summed up perfectly. They both say it several times as quid pro quo. I mean, she doesn't want to be talking to this dude. And I mean, he's got his only motivation for helping solve this serial case is to benefit himself and escape. And so it's a very quid pro quo relationship. It's this for that.
And just like, okay, well, give me something. And obviously anytime Lecter gives her something, she's like, she kind of tries to push it a little. Okay, give me a little more. And she goes, now tell me about your, she almost had it. Like, obviously the quid pro quo part of it is interesting as well, because it gives her additional dynamic of why she is doing what she's doing. It's like, well, the screaming lambs, it's like, maybe we say poor Catherine, and all this kind of stuff. And, it's all that fun things. The really cool thing about this movie, and it's kind of a decider for me on like what makes a really good film, and it's how it fills out everybody. It's not like, yes, there's, you have Gum, you have Buffalo Bill, you have Lecter, you have but at the same time, all of these small character roles are so interesting and lush. Like Barney, the nice guard who Lecter appreciates because he's kind to him. Ardelia, the played by director Cassie Lemons, by the way, who's the friend of the other woman at the trainee.
Right.
She's just there hanging around. Chilton, obviously being a sleaze. Everybody at the mortuary and all the cops at the courthouse, like there's all little fun, like dynamic, like the one guy on the radio and the little kind of the deputy Gomer guy who's like, go get the vest, and the two cops holding Lecter, the guys, the moth specialists, like everything about it. It's not just the main characters show up and people are exposition do something. It's like, no, these people have personalities. It's like the cross-eyed guy starts hitting on Clarice because it's like, hey, I'm a PhD. It's like, what are you doing later? It's like,
yeah, cheeseburgers and beer, and
the occasional house wine. Yeah. Yeah, so it's always fun to have those things. So fun fact, Frankie Faison, who plays Barney, the only person to survive all 4 adaptations of the Thomas Harris Hannibal novels. He was in the original Manhunter from 1986 that did not have Anthony Hopkins in it. Brian Cox played Hannibal Lecter. And then he was in this, obviously. He was in Red Dragon, also playing Barney. And then he was in Hannibal, the sequel to this, also playing Barney. Are you at all familiar with any of the other Hannibal films?
Yeah. I think the only other one I've seen was the one where Ray Liotta eats his own brain.
Yeah, that's Hannibal. That's the direct sequel to this one. Apparently, right after this movie came out, everybody was like, "This movie's great. Let's do Hannibal," and because I think they were in the process of making the book. So the book comes out, and Anthony Hopkins is like, "Yeah, let's do it. Awesome." And Jodie Foster is like, I don't think I want to do that. And that held it up for so long. They essentially recast her, and it was Julianne Moore. That's Julianne Moore in there as Hannibal. As Clarice. Clarice. Excuse me. The fun fact about the Hannibal sequel, it's way different than the book. In the book, instead of they eat Ray in the movie, they eat Ray. Spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen a movie after 20 years. But they eat Ray Liotta's brain, and then Clarice handcuffs herself to Hannibal as the cops are coming, and Hannibal cuts off his own hand to escape, and they run away.
Right.
In the book, they essentially kiss, have sex, and run away together and live happily ever after. So, I mean, it's a way different dynamic than what this is kind of like. The one before this is really interesting. It's called Red Dragon. It's based on the guy who caught Hannibal and Jack Crawford, a guy named Will Graham. In the one from 2000, I think it was 2002 or 3. It was Edward Norton caught Will Graham, and Will Graham, who catches Hannibal Lecter, also played by Anthony Hopkins, and he uses Lecter to try to find a different serial killer. So it's not bad. It's fine. The movie from 1986, Manhunter, same thing. So you think of the most interesting thing about kind of how this movie is framed is how often do you see movies where you're looking at the screen and your eyes are staring directly into the camera? That's a director Jonathan Demme tradition, but I mean, it puts so much emphasis directly on the person's face.
Yeah, I think that's that is an interesting aspect of it, especially a lot of the interaction between Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster. There's So I mean, you're almost there where you're like, okay, I'm face to face with this madman.
Even if there's a bar between them or glass or something, there's nothing in between that camera. It's like you're right there, and it just adds the level into intimacy.
Yeah. And that's a scary thing, especially just that level of intimacy with this insane person that will eat someone's liver or something like that. I mean, just being close to a monster. I think those facial close-ups are really important in kind of conveying that, you're having to come face to face with a monster to find a monster.
This kind of became a thing that director Jonathan Demme did after this. Specifically 2 years later, he did the same thing in Philadelphia with Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington. A lot of face-to-face, a lot of intimacy. He did a lot of things in between. He also did this in The Manchurian Candidate, the remake, also with Denzel Washington in 2004. A lot of face-to-face things like that. He's kind of gone all over the place as a director. He does a lot of, he's kind of has the Scorsese thing of him where he'll make a music documentary and they'll go make a movie, and then he'll go make a music documentary and go make a movie. So one of those, one for them, one for us. Had some really interesting things, Something Wild, Married to the Mob, a lot of kind of not necessarily critically like, yes, this is a type of movie I make. He makes kind of all over the place. Passed away 6 years ago, but did a lot of great stuff. I really highly recommend a movie from 2008 called Rachel Getting Married. It's Anne Hathaway is a former alcoholic going to her sister's wedding, and the family dynamics and the chaos that involves. It's an intense movie, but really well done. Rachel Getting Married from 2008. Highly recommended. Probably the best performance of Anne Hathaway's career that I've ever seen. There's a really lot to get into with kind of how this movie delves with a lot of different things and criminology and psychological profiles and stuff like that. I wanted to talk specifically about the mortuary scene. I have never been around a body that has been dead for longer than a few hours. You have. Whenever they initially, Crawford puts that stuff on his nose and they give it to the other guy and they give it to Foster. I don't think, I would imagine that just helps. Probably doesn't eliminate anything, because as soon as they pull it off, is there any way you can describe the smell of a decayed dead person?
No, I mean, people have tried tricks for a long time, putting mental aid on, or what is it? The what's that called? Robot. Like a Vaseline, or not? I know what you mean. Vicks under your nose, and Vicks.
And chew a piece of garlic or some trick. It just doesn't matter.
It doesn't work. I can't describe but it's an undeniable smell. If you smelled it once, then you never forget it. I mean, it's very distinctive. And people stink worse than animals.
Really?
I can tell the difference between, like, okay, there's a dead cat around here, or a dead bird or something. Yeah. And a dead person has a very distinctive decaying odor. I mean, it's really awful. Usually, whenever I had to spend much time in a scene with a body in advanced decay, it was basically, I went in, step out, throw up.
Yeah.
Basically, once my stomach was empty, and then go in there and then take my photograph, do whatever.
It was just matter of fact. You weren't gonna go into a place with a decaying body and be like, oh, I was good this time. It's like, nope, it's gonna be bad. Like,
it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be awful. And so usually I just go outside and take my puke and then I'm on an empty stomach, and then I can go in there and just dry heave my way through it.
Man,
That was my approach.
I mean, as you said, this shit sandwich that everybody has to take a bite out of. It's which one? It's you got to get through it, and it's unfortunately a, you know, like you said, decaying body. Like I can't imagine the fact that you can't describe it as a bad sign.
Yeah, it's something else. It's just, and I mean, I've kind of wondered, like, if there is a you know, an instinctual or evolutionary thing where you're most disgusted by the scent of your own,
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Being rotting.
He's like,
you know,
this is you should know that smell, and that should make you want to leave. Like,
yeah,
that's a good point. That's a really,
yeah. One of mine died, and I need to hightail it. It's not good. Yeah. But
there are some really interesting small little factors of this film, which is kind of takes a lot of people by surprise. Like, did you notice that whenever Clarice is going through the basement of Buffalo Bill's, there's a blanket on his he has a blanket on his bed crocheted with swastikas. Yeah, like little things like that. He has a bunch of Polaroids with strippers.
Yeah. And then there's like kind of an old lady with like in her underwear. And then a little after that, when Jodie Foster is in the house, there's also like a white supremacy Nazi poster.
Interesting. Yeah.
On the wall as well. Like, I noticed those two things. Yeah.
The characterization of Buffalo Bill in general is very, it's alluded to without being explicit. Like, and he's like the Nazism, the white supremacy, the butterflies, and I'll get into this a little bit because I've seen a lot of LGBTQ critics, especially transgender critics, who are very against what this film represents, which you kind of understand. You're like, well, and the idea that somebody wants to be transgender, they have to kill. Now, that being said, watching it again, they really almost over-explain the fact that he's not transgender. He's actually, they say he's like, he's not. He just thinks he is because he was tortured as a child and he hates who he is and he wants to be against it and all this kind of stuff. And even Jodie Foster has the generalization is like transsexuals are very docile, and it's like, well, that's kind of a little general. I mean, this is 1991 pseudoscience, but at the same time, like, it's more than anything. I don't think it's an aspect. I don't view it as an aspect of, oh, this transgender guy is nuts, is a killer. It's like, this person is nuts. It doesn't matter. Like, it's like, is he hate women? It's not a simple thing. And I think the lack of complete understanding is actually a good thing.
Yeah. I think ultimately, they kind of display, okay, this guy's completely insane, obviously.
Yeah.
And this is just kind of how he exhibits some of that,
unfortunately.
But it's not a I don't know how to put it. I guess it's like he thinks he's transsexual, because he's crazy.
Yes.
Most trans people are trans because
they are. It's not.
They're not.
Yeah.
They're not crazy.
It's a symptom, not a byproduct. He's not crazy because of the transgender. He's crazy, so he thinks this. Like, that's a good way to think about it. So I want to talk about Anthony Hopkins for a little bit because he has a really interesting kind of career through here. This was his first Oscar nomination, his first win. Came in 1991. He was in 1991 the age of 54. So, but that being said, he's been working since the 60s. He just never, like, he is the equivalent of, he essentially is the Ted Levine of success. Like, Ted Levine plays Buffalo Bill. He becomes Buffalo Bill, and from then on, he kind of has a nice steady career of doing in things, and he's in things, and he has a nice steady career. So that was Anthony Hopkins essentially from the 60s all the way up to the 90s. It's like, hey, Anthony Hopkins, I know who Anthony Hopkins is. And this turned him from Anthony Hopkins, the character actor, to Anthony Hopkins is the guy. And from then on, it's kind of no way back from there. So like I said, his first Oscar nomination at 54, he's been nominated 6 other times, won 2 years ago for The Father. I don't know if you've seen The Father.
I haven't.
Okay. It is undeniable if you've ever seen it. He is a man with dementia, and he doesn't realize he has dementia, and it is from his perspective. It is a exceptionally wonderful, heartbreaking performance. It's a tough movie to watch. Very well done. The Father from 2020. It's a really, he won the Oscar 2 years ago for that. He's got a lot of really good works besides that. The Remains of the Day, played Richard Nixon in the film nicely titled Nixon. Played John Quincy Adams in Amistad. Yes. Oscar nominated for that one. Played former Pope in the movie The Two Popes. Lots of stuff throughout the years. I mean, he's been in 1,000 things for so long. You forget how often you see him. Also, you know, he's very British, but he's not British in this movie.
Yeah, no, he's kind of got this way of, I guess, seeming classy, sophisticated, very urbane, but at the same time, not so much associated with a country.
Yeah, it's kind of basically. He based his voice a lot on Truman Capote, which I think is really interesting, especially if you hear it, you're like, oh, okay. It's like that. I guess that makes sense. Like just kind of the small whininess, but with his own type of way. So I want your opinion. I know you don't have much an opinion about this as far as like some people are really passionate about this category fraud when it comes to the Oscars. So Anthony Hopkins's performance as Hannibal Lecter is the shortest ever performance to win Best Actor, lead actor. So I think he's in the movie for 17 minutes or something like that.
Wow.
So, do you see him, like, is he just so lingering over this so much that he's almost undeniable to be the guy? Or, I mean, is it more presence?
Yeah, I mean, this movie doesn't happen without that character.
Yes. And
it's so, man, he does so much with so little.
Yes, he does.
And I mean, that character and Anthony Hopkins' performance, he contributes so much with so little actual screen time. So, man, I get it. I mean, I think the awards are deserved.
I agree.
I mean, almost more deserved, if you ask me.
He does so much in that little time. Yeah.
When you can pack that much of a punch.
Yeah.
So
I agree. That makes sense to me. I mean, you look at it, and, it's kind of funny to look at who he wins the Oscar that year over Warren Beatty for the movie Bugsy, it's about Bugsy Siegel. He's in it for 90% of the movie. Nick Nolte in The Prince of Tides also in most of the movie. Robin Williams is probably half in the movie The Fisher King, the wonderful movie, by the way. Robert De Niro, he also beat Robert De Niro in Cape Fear. You want to talk about two of the creepier performances you ever seen in movies going against each other.
Yeah.
So at the same time, it's funny because on the other side, Jodie Foster beat Laura Dern for her first Oscar nomination for Rambling Rose, a movie I haven't seen. Bette Midler for a movie called For the Boys, a movie I haven't seen. But she beat Gina Davis and Susan Sarandon for Thelma and Louise. And a lot of people kind of point it to is like, well, did Jodie Foster win that? Or did nobody know who to decide to vote for between the women of Thelma and Louise? Nobody could be like, oh, I'm voting for Gina Davis or I'm voting for Susan Sarandon. But we split the difference and go to Jodie Foster instead.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's kind of like, well, we've got a tie on this side and then just one.
Yeah. It's, I mean, she had already won an Oscar a few years before. But regardless, I think it's fully deserved. She does such little, like it could have gone such bad directions, but she just kind of keeps it all settled and keeps it grounded. And like, whenever you see like, occasionally whenever there are like action or thriller movies and there are females in the head, you're just like, well, it's like, it's like you're a tiny little woman. You're not going to beat this 6'4" henchman.
Right.
That's not what this is. This is more, I'm intelligent. I have the training. I know what I'm supposed to do. I have all the requisite ability, but that's not what this movie's about. And she's able to present all that, and all of it seems believable.
Yeah. Well, for the most part, I mean, I definitely her being a recruit.
Yeah.
Her being a trainee.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the same thing as like, okay, I went to college. I had criminal profiling classes, criminology classes, stuff like that. But if I'm in the police academy, they're not going to say, all right, come investigate this massive murder.
That does seem like of all the things for them to do, and without that decision, the movie doesn't happen, obviously. But why do they get a recruit to talk to Lecter? Like, there's just no reason. Like,
no, that's really my only problem with this movie is
absolutely.
Like, why not get a well-qualified, experienced?
You can't tell me you have somebody down the hallway. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Oh no. The only thing we got is a trainee in the academy. That part doesn't make sense.
Yes, I agree with you there. Like I mean, it's one of those, unfortunately, it's one of those plot things where, well, the plot doesn't happen unless she's a trainee, and it kind of tempers all these type of things. And like, it has to be her. It's not necessarily that she's a trainee, but yeah, there's no reason at all. Like, and not only that, the funny thing is they keep like Crawford and Starling keep like lying and doing all this stuff in the background to like, oh, you said something about this deal with the senator, and this is like, yeah, we had to make it up. It's like, oh, okay, well, she's not happy about it. Like, they keep getting by the skin of their teeth. Like, it's just lucky that these things keep working out.
That aspect is probably the biggest problem I have. I think if they had just made her like, okay, she's
fresh out of the academy.
She's an up and coming FBI criminal, criminal filer.
Yeah.
I mean, real superstar.
Yeah.
Go from there. I don't know why you have to keep her in the academy.
Doesn't make any whole lot of sense, but hey, whatever. It worked out for the best in the end.
It did.
All right, now on to my favorite segment. Every week I go through the filmography of the filmmaker and put Jake's cinematic knowledge to the test. It is time for Poll for a Dumbass. Today, we are going through the filmography, the selected filmography, not the entire one, because that would be ridiculous, of Miss Jodie Foster, the youngest person to ever win 2 Oscars. She won 2 before she was 30 years old, still going strong today. Got her early start in a lot of Disney stuff. Started her life as she was the Coppertone baby, actually. The girl that was having her bottoms pulled down by a dog, Jodie Foster.
Yeah.
Really? So, yes, sir. So
fun fact.
She did a lot of early Disney stuff. Won't get into that. How about we start at the age of 12? 1976. Taxi Driver.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen.
an
Yeah.
all time. It's my favorite Scorsese movie. It's my favorite De Niro performance. I love Taxi Driver more than anything in the world. Not as much as John Hinckley, but you do what you can.
I was fixing to say, I mean, you got to give her credit. I mean, she inspired someone to try to assassinate a president.
It's like,
That's pretty good.
As bad as you feel, there's a part of you that goes, "That's nice." Like,
You must be doing something right.
Yeah, exactly. Her first Oscar nomination coming at that age in 1976. She had another movie in 1976, probably more seen a little more by other people. How about Freaky Friday?
Freaky Friday. I don't think so.
The mom and the daughter switch. That's the original. The mom and the daughter switch lives.
See, I was fixing to say, I think I've maybe seen some redos of it.
Yeah, the new ones with Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan. Pretty solid movie, but yeah, she was in the original Freaky Friday. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I hadn't seen the original.
So at that point, she was kind of this in between of like, okay, you've done Freaky Friday, you've done Taxi Driver, and nobody can really decide where you want to be. So she's kind of doing TV, doing random movies. She's like, you know what? I think I might want to quit acting. Let me try one more. And does this movie in 1988, The Accused. She is a lady who is at a bar. She's a young lady at a bar. She is gang raped. And she takes them to try. She doesn't, the men who rape her are convicted, but she takes the onlookers who are cheering on the rapist to prison, to trial. It is a courtroom drama. It was the movie that brought her to superstardom and won her first Oscar. So it's a rough watch. I'm not surprised you haven't seen it, but it really well done. Not exactly it's not a great movie, but she's really good in it. Obviously you've seen Silence of the Lambs. After Silence of the Lambs, The Accused and Silence of the Lambs almost come back to back. So, I mean, from then she's like, okay, do whatever you want to do. She did a little directing stuff. Some hits, some misses. How about 1994's Maverick? With Mel Gibson in the lead role.
Yes.
Great movie. Probably the cutest she's ever been. Really good looking in the movie. Yeah. Same year, getting her fourth Oscar nomination. A movie that's easy to make fun of, and still kind of easy to make fun of. How about the movie Nell? Yeah. It's easy enough to be like, what a stupid, silly, especially in hindsight. But I mean, it's not bad. How about a couple of years later, she's still doing other stuff after Nell. A movie that's very divisive of a lot of people. 1997's Contact. Yes. It's
I've seen it.
In hindsight, at the time, everybody's like, "This is ridiculous." You have a spiritual leader played by a Christian leader played by Matthew McConaughey. It's pretty ridiculous. But if you see it these days, it actually brings up a lot of interesting, really good points. Good movie.
Yeah.
How about the remake of The King and I, Anna and the King from 1999?
No,
I didn't think so. I can't imagine you've seen The Dangerous Lives of Altar Boys, so I didn't have that included on there. It's a nice little independent film. How about from 2002, maybe her most commercial of her films, Panic Room?
Yeah.
Good one. Really good one. Do you know who okay, so her daughter is played by Kristen Stewart. I think she's like 12 in that movie. Can you name the three actors who were the bad guys breaking into the house? All fairly prominent.
Only one I know is Dwight Yoakam.
Dwight Yoakam, yeah, so Dwight Yoakam is the worst one. The kind of criminal the good criminal is Forrest Whitaker. And,
yeah.
And the one with cornrows, Jared Leto.
Dang. I'd have to watch that again.
It's a fascinating movie. A really good movie. Good to watch. Very paranoid. Speaking of paranoid thrillers, this is one that I remember watching in theaters, and I'll remember always watching this movie, and then every time I see the movie like advertised anywhere, I'm just like, I forgot that was a movie that I saw. Flight Plan.
Flight Plan.
It's one of those one of those classics. Like, is this woman crazy, or is everybody out plotting to get her? And it turned out everybody was plotting against her. She gets on a plane with her daughter, and she falls asleep. She wakes up, her daughter's gone, and it's like, "Where's my daughter?" And everybody on the plane's like, "You never had a daughter? I never saw a daughter." And she's the entire time she's like, "I'm not nuts. I swear I'm not nuts." It's an interesting little kind of pulpy, like.
Sounds like the ultimate gaslighting.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Gaslight.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But no, I haven't seen it.
Not a bad movie. Okay, so this one, it's probably the last movie I'm like, this is a banger and it's a great movie. Inside Man. No Inside Man? Really? Ooh, put that on your list. Write that baby down. 2006, probably the most commercial of Spike Lee movies. So Clive Owen and a group of other people decide to rob a bank. And so they hold this bank hostage, and Denzel Washington shows up to negotiate the release. And Jodie Foster is kind of this shadowy figure in the background, somewhat involved in it somehow. Really exceptional movie. I highly recommend you watch Inside Man. Inside Man is fantastic. I will probably try to convince you to eventually do an episode on Inside Man. So that's from 2006. The next year, a lot of people thought she might have actually gotten she was planning for an Oscar nomination. Didn't really work out. Not a bad movie though. 2007's The Brave One. She plays like a vigilante in New York after her husband is killed. I'm not surprised you haven't seen it. Not bad though. Now a movie I think you might have seen. I think you've seen it because I think you remember telling me about it. With Mel Gibson, directed by her as well. The Beaver. Mel Gibson has a beaver puppet on his hand. And he can't really connect with his family. So he puts a beaver puppet on his hand and starts speaking through that. It might not have been you. It might have been our mom. It's The Beaver is it's a ridiculous movie, but what that doesn't sound catch your fancy, Jake?
It sounds like if I had seen it, I'd remember it.
Yeah,
so
you're not
the
wrong.
fact that I don't remember it,
I have a feeling
I
that's
doubt
one
I've seen it.
I have a feeling that's one you would hate. So I think you could probably skip that one. I'm not going to make you watch that. So believe me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. She's kind of gone into more supporting stuff these days. 2013's Elysium with Matt Damon. It's a world where the planet is kind of overrun, and there's a place called Elysium, which is kind of like a moonish place outside the world that is for high-end customers. It's not very good, but she's okay in it. All right, so you are doing way worse than I expected you to. That's not surprising though. We got one more. We got one more. How about 2021's a film? She probably just missed an Oscar nomination for this as well. It's called The Mauritanian. So it's based on a true story. It is based on the memoir of Mahamadou Slahi, who was a Mauritanian man held for 14 years without charge in Guantanamo Bay. He was essentially, waterboarded, all that stuff. Never got anything out of him because I don't think he did anything wrong. Like, he just happened to know some guy, and so they kind of just connected it. It's a good movie. Tahar Rahim is a guy who plays the Slahi. He's really good. And Jodie Foster is Nancy Hollander, the lawyer trying to get him out of prison. It's got some good parts to it. It's kind of weird to say scenes of torture are dynamically shot, but they are. Like, whenever he's torturing the guy, he's like, man, this is really there. But yeah, it's a solid movie. Like, it's not one that I would be like, oh no, don't watch it. No, it's solid. The Mauritanian. So yeah, that's not surprising. You only had 6 out of 15 for 40 years of work. Like, I'm not surprised you haven't seen The Beaver. or maybe the accused here or there, but I mean, Maverick, Nell, Contact, Panic Room, Silence of the Lambs, Taxi Driver. That's pretty solid. I mean, she doesn't work that much anymore. She's going to be in the 4th season of True Detective.
Oh, really?
So maybe getting more prominent these days. But yep, that's all I got from you, Jake. So
all right,
not too bad.
Yeah, well, I tried.
What do you got for me, buddy?
Man, it's that time.
Am I surrounded in plexiglass?
Mm-hmm.
I am.
Yep.
Okay.
In the hot box.
Each episode, instead of me steering the conversation, Jacob peppers me with a series of questions that I must answer truthfully. Quid pro quo, you could say. Sometimes it's just trivia. Sometimes it is not. What do you got for me today, buddy?
Okay. I'm assuming you've never eaten a person.
I would say that is correct. Just for the sake of this is a public. So yes, I've never eaten a person.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, what is your favorite meat? Let's say you had to go the rest of your life and you could only go beef, pork, chicken / poultry or seafood.
It's funny. I would probably default to, realistically, I'd probably default to chicken just because it's probably the meat I eat more than anything else. Maybe if I thought about it a little more, I'd be like, okay, meat, beef, because you could do a lot with it. Like you can the whole cow, there's a lot of different things you could do with it. And I mean, even it's one of those things where maybe I can talk myself into fish because there's so many varieties of it. It's not just fish, seafood. But I'd probably default to chicken just because it's the thing that I probably eat more than anything else.
Yeah. All right.
What about you?
So, beef.
Okay. That makes sense. I mean, I've heard you say the words, I don't know if there's a heaven, but if there is, it has beef in it.
Yeah.
You've eaten some incredible pieces of meat. Yeah, I get it.
A good steak.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I get it.
There ain't nothing better.
I agree. Sorry, vegans.
Yeah. All right. What for you? What is? I know. I think this movie. There's a morbid curiosity.
Yes.
That attracts us to the dark stuff, cannibalism, serial killers, everything. I mean, the average Joe has never been like, I wonder what that guy's liver tastes like, or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think we have a morbid curiosity with how does that happen?
Yes.
Like, why? So along those lines, like, what is the most interesting serial killer to you, where like you would really want to find out what happened there?
So there is a guy, so it's a serial killer that I've read a lot about, who's really interesting, but at the same time, like he is, so a lot of times the serial killers I'll read about and I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. And, other times I'm just like, I don't want to know anything about it. Like,
right. Too much.
It's like I read things and I'm looking it up. So there's a guy named Dean Corll, Corll. He did so much terrible stuff, and every time I read about it, it's just so mind-chillingly terrible. I think he's like he killed 28 plus people, but for some reason you just don't hear about him. I think mostly because he was killed. So his thing he would abduct people, usually boys, assault them. And then he had a thing called a torture board. It's like a big piece of plywood where he could hold people there on this torture board and do all the crazy stuff to them. And just and the more you read about it, the worse it gets. I think the reason it happened, the reason he doesn't get the press that essentially he does, is because he was doing it one day and his kind of co-conspirator, kind of like a guy who got a little too wrapped up in all of it and was kind of along the lines. He was going to torture one of his friends, and he's like, no, you're not. He's like, yes, I am. And they shot him, and he shot him and killed him. And so he was arrested, and then all it came out, and the confessions came out, and they searched for victims and all this kind of stuff. But I mean, nobody knew who this guy was until he was dead. So it's not like they were looking for him.
Wow.
So Dean Corll is the one that I always default to is, man, this guy terrifies me to no end, and I don't understand why it's the case. I'm generally a big fan, a big believer of nature over nurture, as far as like, I think a lot of times it's like these guys are just broken when they're born. And it just happens. It's like they have something in them that makes them do that. Now, maybe something in their family life pushes them more towards that. I'm not a psychologist, but my personal opinion. And I just wonder, it's like, why did you ever want to, like, are you just fascinated by I accidentally killed this guy? But
yeah.
Have you been watching the Dahmer miniseries?
My wife has, and so I've been catching parts. I guess I'm not all the way followed along. I think she just finished it, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it was when he was just like fixing a human steak.
Yeah.
It was like right before, like he's just putting salt and pepper on it. And I'm like, he's just making a steak, but it's appetite first.
Oh, yeah. That's the unsettling part of all this. You see cannibalism, human steak, and you're just like, yeah, just get the creepy crawlers. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, let's say, you're a civilian, and more along the lines of journalism, or, podcasting, whatever.
Sure.
You get the opportunity to interview Hannibal Lecter.
Okay.
Do you take that opportunity?
Well, I mean, if that's what you do, and if you're like journalism wise, you have to go in and you have to try, like, just because you have to attempt to, like, I've had to interview people in my life, and I've known that it's like, okay, I'm going to talk to them about this, and this, and this. And then I talk about one thing, and all of a sudden we talk about all the things that steer the conversation. So I guarantee at the end of it, I would come out going like, I'm going to make Lecter look good, aren't I? Like, just because, like, you have to kind of go, but I would absolutely not miss the opportunity, especially if that was part of my, like, if I'm a serial killer podcast,
investigative journalist,
if that's your thing, absolutely. I mean, how do I first, I was like, I know it's like, oh, he bit this person's face off because they were mean. It's like, sweet, I'm gonna be nice. Like, it's like, what's the thing that he hated? It's like, oh, he hated grandmas. It's like, cool, don't bring up grandmas. Like, just do whatever you have to do research to investigate, to make sure it's like, okay, I don't want to make this person mad.
Yeah.
But yes, I would take the opportunity.
Yeah. And that's something interesting. Whenever Clarice first interviews them, is kind of how they establish rapport. I mean, he establishes dominance.
Yeah.
He's like, you sit down, you know, I need to see your credentials. You need to come closer. So yeah, he establishes dominance
and
early on.
Even when she's like, fill out this questionnaire, and he's like, oh, you were doing so well. And then it's like,
yeah. All right. So you are going in to interview Hannibal Lecter.
Yes.
What's the most important question you'd want to ask him?
I would wonder to myself, like, okay, so you're obviously, especially a Lecter type person, it's like, okay, you're incredibly intelligent, you want to get away with it, all this kind of, like, you're not like, what is my big thing is, what is the end game? Like, do you just do this until you are specifically caught? Do you have a number in mind? Are you just, you're using them as like a butcher shop, and you're just like, well, I need to eat people, and this is how I do it.
Right.
I mean,
Are
what
you
is,
just hungry?
yeah, is that exactly?
It's the ultimate. Yeah, you should have had a Snickers.
Yeah. Yes,
You're
Hannibal
acting
Lecter
like
is a
Hannibal
Snickers guy.
Lecter.
Yes,
You
that's a
should.
that's a
Yeah.
good one. Yeah, so I would want to know, like, what's the conclude? Like, you're an intelligent guy. You think of things and think of all that conclude. What's the conclusion to this? When you were killing people, was it just, I'm going to kill people for the rest of my life? I'm going to escape one day. Is there a number in line? Where is that? Of all the logical decisions you make, where is the conclusion to it? Where does it stop?
Yeah, man, that's a good way to look at it. And instead of, because I think I would go more towards like, what was your motivation? What started it?
Yeah.
What blah, blah, blah. That's very interesting to be like, where'd you think this is going to end?
It's like, I was going to kill one more guy. It's like, okay, well, after that though, you were going to kill somebody else. And then after that, you're going to kill somebody else. Like, it's like, is it like an addiction that you were trying to quell? And if you are going to quell that addiction, how do you do that? Like, does that end? That's why it's so fascinating. Like, you can understand how somebody gets addicted to cigarettes or drugs or alcohol, or though that understands. Killing people is not something you think, okay, wow, you are addicted to that. It's like, okay, well, how do you wean there's no nicotine patch. There's no methadone for killing people. Yeah. So
like, I'm only going to kill one a month.
Yes,
here.
Exactly. I'm
really cutting back.
Got to scale back. It's like, I have a new girlfriend. I need it. Yeah.
I've got work's been busy. So I'm just gonna,
it's a slow murder month for me. Yeah.
Yeah. This hobby's getting out of hand here.
I get it.
But yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all I got for you, man.
All right. I'll
You're free to go.
I'm finally out on a beach on Anthrax Island. I appreciate that.
Yep.
All right, Jake, before we go, what is your film rating for Silence of the Lambs?
Extremely good. Yeah, just subject matter. It's not something you want to watch all the time.
Correct.
But, in terms of serial killer movies, scary movies, that kind of thing, it's excellent.
I agree.
Very good.
I agree. 5 out of 5 stars for me. The best movie of 1991 that I've seen. I have it 11th all time in Best Picture winners. Some all timers in front of it, and this is an all timer. As far as thrillers go, it's up there. Just across the board, the perfect type of crime, serial killer, thriller, horror movie.
Yeah,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
great movie. Go check it out if you can. I think it's out on DirecTV, all these different places. Please check it out. I think that just about does it for this episode of the Film Critic, the Common Man. Thank you so very much for joining us. You can follow me on Twitter at NebIsBen, on Letterboxd at Neb810, on Instagram at Ben Miller Movies. Check out my website, icecreamforfreaks.com. Got some new reviews coming out this week. That's kind of season, and new movies coming out. Really interesting Korean movie coming out. I got a review of it called Decision to Leave. It's kind of a police procedural. It's like Basic Instinct without the eroticism. Really good, interesting movie. Follow me on other writings on the Film Experience and Cinema Scholars. Follow me on other pods. I'm the David Lewis of podcasting. Jake, where can the people find you?
I'll be at the bottom of a cellar with a dog named Precious.
We didn't talk about Precious at all, and I think that's just fine, because now another aspect of this movie, without Precious, does the movie, is it able to, does that stall?
That's the only leverage she had.
That's the only leverage she had. I get it. Make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at Critic Common Pod. Please like, subscribe, rate, and review. Enjoy the show wherever you get your podcast. We will finish up our October miniseries next week with one of the creepier movies, a movie we could probably do 2 hours of just behind the scenes stuff. It's Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. And then we will finish up and finally be able to move on. Try to be as creepy and overcast. I'm sure somebody in the country will be watching it in the middle of a snowstorm. We won't, but we'll see what we can do. We will make sure to catch you guys next time. Yeah, go ahead.
I almost forgot something.
Oh yeah, go by all means. Oh, here we go.
This is actually a lamb.
Is it really?
Skull that I found 2 weeks ago in New Mexico.
Perfect.
So, but the weird thing is that night it just I can't get it to stop.
hopefully, Jake the lamb stops screaming every time.
Hopefully so.
Fans, I hope you're I hope you're watching this in bed, and this is the last thing you watch before you go to sleep. Thank you thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch you next time.
See you.
What's the trick? What's the trick? In making my love stick. What's the trick?